You got moves.
Welcome back to the round table for the finals of the GFC. I am joined by Animated Jay, JayFunk, Jest, Recursion, and Krusty. And our topic for today, Animated Jay, can you remind everybody what the topic is for today one more time?
Totally. So now that GFC, is over, what can we change on the scorecard and why?
I am going to take a page out of Krusty's book and take some notes since I actually am in charge of the You Got Moves scorecard. So I'm going to need to write some of this down.
So, and again, it's with the best intention of creating a scorecard which removes biasness, I'm sure that's the idea of why to even have a scorecard, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
So
The scorecard is to create a system that allows the Glovers to showcase their talents by earning points in various categories. So because light shows are subjective and because light shows can be judged so differently, it's important for us to find, ways almost like, if someone were to bring their tools, right? And they bring their tools to a competition of some kind, and they have to use these tools to build something. They have to, and that something is going to be scored accordingly. So that didn't quite work as an explanation, but we tried. We got there.
yeah, there has to be some kind of criteria, but again, yeah, what do you guys think? I mean, we've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people here, different experiences. 6 people here, different experiences, all with movement, gloving, dance, or some one or the other. How can we make something more? I don't know. Is objective the right word? I'll leave it.
Well, let's go category by category, and break it down.
Well, I think objective is exactly the right word, isn't it? Yeah, art is subjective by nature, but like there's unquestionably objective aspects of natural aesthetics or music. There's certain things that all art shares.
I think the main issue comes from the subjectivity of the experience and the fact that a scorecard is overlaying objectivity over subjectivity. So it's almost like what we need really for like less bias, I suppose, is more stringent definitions on movements and orientation and what concepts are exactly. The more you define something, the easier it is to judge.
But does this take away the expression of the artist?
Exactly. Does that put the definition into a box?
In my opinion, if you are judging a show often, meaning, you're seeing the same competitors, they're going on the next round, you're seeing them on the next round, you're seeing them on the next round, more than likely you would have some kind of standard based on what you've seen so far, what they performed. Maybe. I'm just saying, like, it may be that way. At least for me.
I don't think you should. I think you gotta separate yourself, and this comes from
intuitively
this comes from a place of, again, trying to be as unbiased as possible, because you have to treat, because maybe their opponent is someone you've never seen before.
Yep.
So you are subconsciously going to react differently to the new show, but being unbiased, you have to take yourself out of that and say, okay, but did this person that I know who still performs to the same standard, or maybe they perform to a better or a worse standard, is it still better than what we saw before? I'm not going to score them lower on this scorecard because of what I'm seeing now from their opponent. The truth of the scorecard, which takes the bias away from everything, is the fact that you're not facing an opponent. You're facing a scorecard.
Yeah.
You're facing the judge's opinion of the scorecard.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, is that what I'm trying to get at here is that since you've been judging, the same person based on the scorecard, right? That being said, when it comes to you seeing their shows based on scoring on that scorecard, whatever the criteria may be, it might be, the trait side, or it might be the concept side. What was it? The concepts? Is that what it's called? Or what was it? Yeah.
Yes.
So you're basically judging on either or. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is if you're, constantly seeing someone's show, what do you feel is the middle ground in terms of like, all right, well, this person and you're, to not be biased or, what do you feel is that middle ground in terms of you being able to determine, all right, this person really did put their, put a lot of effort in or they didn't. Like, for example, little details like recording outside of your room. You know what I mean? Or are these things that you take into consideration or not?
Here's the reality
Yeah,
of it.
yeah,
When
eh,
I judge against the scorecard, I judge against my own personal what I think I would do in that situation, how I would throw the show. In reality, I don't care how many times I've seen someone throw a show because I'm comparing them to me. In the end, maybe that's not the best measure, but it is the best measure that I know. You know what I mean?
I think that it's a good measure as long as it's like a controlled chaos. You like as long as everybody gets the same notion, like everybody gets the same would I do it better? Then
Exactly, and it
yeah,
comes down to my
yeah,
standard, my
yeah.
personal, like
For example,
would
if
I be
the
satisfied with that? Would I be okay with it? Would I have noticed those mistakes? Would I have done would I have done these things
Mhm.
differently? And every
eh,
single person every light show, whether I'm judging it or not, they get that standard.
you know what's crazy? Now that you mentioned that too, there's some people who, like I can kind of, speak from other older generation of Glovers where they're like, oh well, would I want to get that show in person as opposed to in a camera? Like, would I be able, there's a lot of variables that go into it as well. And going back to what you said, that's 100% I agree with you. Like, we judge based on our own experience, what we would like to see, because what we understand. Of course, some people might not understand that certain concepts are hard to do and some will. It comes down to experience, like you said, in my opinion.
So it sounds like we can label the things that are, are biased in this because I'm hearing a lot like we're sharing what is biased and what are the things of personal experience, seeing it over again. So what are we going to do about it? That's the question, I guess, also. How are we going to change the scorecard? How can we reduce the biasness?
Can we?
Can we?
Well,
I'm
let's
interested in
define again. Let's define biasness because I just define my personal bias. My personal
well, no,
bias is everyone's got to face me,
if
right?
I
So
may, sorry, if I may, we talked about a bias, a very simple bias of I've already seen that because I've seen that Glover before. I've seen him
right,
do that before
right,
versus I've never seen his show before. Now the
right.
reason that is a bias is because things that, and we'll use this match as an example. You were saying that there were Krusty, you were saying that things that Mega Sloth has done that you've seen and those almost diminished points for you, right?
Right,
Versus
right.
Geometric and JPEG, who both brought things that you hadn't seen before. Now, for example, if you had seen as many of Geometric's shows as Megasloth, some of his awesome flare moves might not be as awesome because you've seen them 2 or 3 times
Yep, yep.
Like
before.
Yeah, but
I've seen him throw this like so many times, like and being able to like close it and then open it back up. Like I've seen that so many times, but I took that out I'm trying to take that out of my mind and think in context
Right,
of
because you understand, okay, that move is like an 8 difficulty because of how difficult the move is. It's not because
exactly.
of how much you've seen it. So, with the concept side, that's fine, that works, and I think that's kind of taken care of in the scorecard because you're just measuring the difficulty of the concepts. You're not measuring the
So
originality or the creativity.
just
Like everything has a yes. Go
one
ahead,
thing I want
Krusty.
to say real quick before it goes off my head is that, when I judge a show, I really want to see someone, take risk. Like, it's not you can play
I
it safe,
agree.
right? Like, that's just my opinion. You can play it safe if you want to do your own concepts, but I want to see people take risk. And how you define that, for me, I think it's like, again, if you watch someone's shows over and over, you can tell when someone's really pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. That's my opinion.
I think everybody's going to have a different opinion about this, but I personally would like to see the different aspects of the scorecard get even more strictly defined. So, like, for instance, say somebody came in and they did a show and they didn't hit any beats, but their musicality was texture based, right? And if only one, so say maybe only one person on the panel or whatever is even like experienced in that idea, like a lot of turfers will go off that too, because it's like they won't hit like beats, and sometimes they'll hit lyrics, but they're more about like a feel and punchlines and whatever. But you can have somebody on that panel who's like, they're really vibing with that kind of musicality, and everybody else is like that doesn't even, you know what I mean, that doesn't even fall in line with musicality for me. Like there's drums, there's sounds, like,
to that.
things like, you know what I mean? So yeah, like I feels like, and I understand that at some point it starts to kind of feel like, well, now we're limiting, what they can do and blah blah blah. And it's like, it's a competition where people have to be scored, and in the best case scenario is that at the end of the day, there shouldn't be a lot of arguments for, was that wrong, right? Could it actually have gone to this guy? Could it actually? The more that you can get to a point where it's like, I mean, look at the scorecard, right? Why did he win? Because this and this and this and this. Well, now we can't argue because the definitions are so strict and specific that that's how it is.
I mean, that's why people love sports, is because at the end of the day, you can just say scorecard, like scoreboard, and it's just like.
Right.
For sure. I think yeah.
It's fine.
I think the open definitions allow for more discussion and allow for more creativity back and forth, and it allows people to learn enough about each other's perspective that it kind of brings people together. But I see what you mean about how it can kind of create almost a decentralized idea of what things really are.
Yeah, man, I agree. I actually like how you said that very well, because people, like I said, I like people taking risks, but at the end of the day, this is a competition, right? If your goal is to win, then of course you're gonna do everything in your power to make sure you hit the whatever highest number you can on the scorecard. And so you're right, there does have to be some kind of definition to that, like some kind of what is that standard? What is that I agree with you on that part, man. I think that's really well said.
And you just got to look at it from like a perspective of how much knowing the judge could bias the outcome accidentally in either direction.
Yeah.
Because like you said, how many times have we watched Mega Sloth's light shows? And you were saying that you wanted to see more. You felt like he played it safe, or all these things, and it comes down to, well, did he beat up the scorecard or not? I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to he hit everything he needed to hit, but then he's got this one judge who's like, yeah, but I've seen him do better though. Like, what? That's not the context we're looking for right now, Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point for sure. I mean, like I said, I'm only judging one category, right, in terms of musicality.
And
But
that's the best
yeah,
that's the best reason
yeah,
we can say for having like a panel like this, and having more
for
more
sure.
clearly defined. Maybe that's what we do, is we have a bigger panel. We have more categories. Instead of cleanliness, we have.
Well, to be fair, my initial plan was to have 3 judges per scorecard section, but it's really hard to get 9 or 10 people together at the same time.
Have you ever tried to herd cats?
Like getting 7 people together is a feat. So that would be 9 or 10 would be a lot. I could do it, but it's we do what we can. Yes, Mr. Funk.
I would like to know, what is the rationale for not having everyone judge everything?
Because it's a lot. I've judged light shows for 10 years, and I can say that without a doubt that judging light shows over and over again will burn you out. So I designed ways to lighten the load for everybody without complicating or compromising the integrity of like balance. Like, oh, if I had this judge, it might have been different, or whatever. Or oh, if I went first, if this judge judged me differently than they judged this person, or something along those lines. So it just going through it, the group stage, right? We had 4 groups. We had 12 glovers per group. Each group had 2 judges, one for each side of the scorecard. Those judges judged all 12 shows on that same scale, and then the top 3 scores moved on.
What if we
right?
took that a
Round
step further?
3.
Sorry to interrupt you for a second, but this just flashed into my head. What if we took that a step further and you said each judge judged each side of the scorecard? What if we had 2 separate scorecards entirely? So just extend what
So
the categories of score are, and then
Right. So
like the classic one and then the abstract one. Not to say like the abstract in the terms of the concept that Glover's use from Hawaii, but just like an entirely new abstract scorecard.
to answer your question, the reason is actually feedback from 4KC. When we had the judges, we had everybody using 9 categories on the scorecard. The general feedback from all these high-profile judges on PM that we had was, honestly, 9 categories is a lot for one person.
Gotcha.
Maybe we find a middle ground and it's 5 per person, but when you really only have 3 things to hone in on, you can really zero in
Yeah, I agree with
on
that.
what those things are.
I agree with that.
Pressure. A lot less pressure too.
It's
Like,
And
less-
yeah, it is also
You've got the entire scorecard. You're like, oh, was he this
It's-
clean? Well, I mean, the concepts were fucking cool, but like the musicality with it all, like, how does that tie into the clan? With the pacing, I mean,
not to mention there are a lot of judges that we had that were happy to judge one side of the scorecard, but were not happy to judge the other side.
Yeah,
So-
it's really easy, and like I said in the match, before this last match, the finals match, I wondered how the scores would have turned out if we had the duties flipped, which side, if we had our sides of the scorecard flipped. Well,
Exactly.
it's really interesting because each specific judge gets to focus a little bit more in on their specific topics, but they're also cut off from maybe other biases that they may have. So
it really makes you think in the in the context of the category you're scoring in, because, like, for example, looking at like
right,
concepts, and how it relates to musicality, right?
right.
I mean,
like it's like I liked Megasloth's show more in terms of musicality a lot, but I ended up giving him one last point in concepts for
Right.
whatever reason. I
Yeah.
don't know why, but it ended up working out that way. He still won though because he's a beast.
Yeah, I think the way that the
Yeah,
scorecard is divided is good. I think we just need to figure out maybe like different category names and a couple different definitions and stuff like that.
Maybe subcategories. I don't know.
No, I
know
think
it's not
I think the 6 categories is good. I just want to change some of the definitions around, maybe some point totals.
I know it's not as simple as this, but at some point it does start to kind of feel like, oh, I won this because I fit Teddy's standard of concepts more than the other 2, right? Instead of like, I objectively, like, in all these, across all these categories did better. You know what I mean? I know it's not that simple. But like, if you look,
So how would you
scorecard,
accomplish your goal?
I would try to bring the category number down, and I would still personally try to have everybody judge all categories, especially if it's something where you can sit back and play something over and over. Where you can be like, you can literally, depending on how serious you are about the judging, right? Like, everybody might be different. Maybe they'll watch it one time. They're like, yeah, like I'll just recollect everything I just saw and I'll do whatever. But if it's in front of you on a computer and you can rewind the thing and be like, this watch is for musicality, this watch is for concept, but whatever it is, especially if you have that freedom and time, could go more for that. Now, when it's like in person and there's time restraints and like, you got to get this event done and you know what I mean? And it's live setting. It feels like it definitely
That's very
needs to be
different.
more. It needs to be more of a who impressed me. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, it's 2 people. They did their thing. Who left the mark in my head? Who did the thing? And I'm picking that person. Less of a like, okay, this guy like his concepts were. I'm trying to remember if
More impressionable and less calculated.
And that's
so
why
to
the
speak.
3 categories, I think the 3 categories is a nice mix, because 3 is not a lot to remember. Like, did you do this? Yes. Did you do this? Yes. Did you do this? Kinda. Done. Easy.
right.
right? And it
Yeah.
allows you to kind of, do the point thing, but also not just point and be able to like, no, here's the scale a little bit.
Okay, but how do you reduce gloving to 3 categories?
We just did. We did the whole competition. We just did 6 categories, 3 on each side.
Okay, but you said just 3 categories and
Per
like
judge. Per side. I'm sorry. I meant per side. I'm still
Okay.
working off of the 2 judges
Okay,
per.
okay.
There will never be a point. There will never be a point where I will say that each judge is responsible for part of the entire scorecard. It will always be everybody has a section of the scorecard.
I really like what JayFunk said about, this is not a live competition. It's literally we're watching a video where we can pause and play, pause and play. So like, yeah, like if someone's serious about judging, like take notes, like write timestamps,
Right.
have reasons to why you're judging the way you're judging, as opposed to just going off watching it once and just saying what you think off your top of your head. Because this is a competition, right? So like we want to make sure that we give our honest opinion, our honest feedback, the reasonings, and yeah, like it may be different from what other people think, but I think at the end of the day, if you're judging one show completely, everything, who knows? Like it might end up being better in the long run, and you don't have to. In terms of the live, the videos that we're doing right now for YouTube, maybe cut it down, make it shorter. I don't know. There's got to be ways to improve it for sure,
Yeah.
or even ask for feedback from other people. Like what I mean, asking for feedback, like asking the viewers, what feedback do you have for me? Put that in the box and
That's
see what
right,
they
viewers.
think.
Take this opportunity to comment your feedback right now for us for
Please
next
do.
time. And take this
Seriously.
opportunity to comment, like, and subscribe, and click the bell button, and also go and buy my book because it's going to be linked in the bottom in the description too.
Absolutely. Buy this man's book. And also, in case you want, you can grab one of these fresh new You Got Moves jerseys on the website as well.
But yeah, man, this has been a really good discussion. I think this was a good topic to pick. Everyone has a lot of great points. I really learned a lot from this, this meeting in general. So I appreciate the time.
Yeah, this was fun, guys. Thank you so much. Before we close this out, I always like to hear from the guest on what they thought of this. So, Mr. JayFunk, what'd you think?
I mean, it was awesome. I've been pretty, I guess you could say, like disconnected from gloving scene for a bit. So first off, it was nice to be looking at shows again. It was nice to see 3 completely different performances. Not just like, oh, I feel like, it's gonna be 3 light shows and like, I don't know, like it's just gonna be 3 guys that are really into Impact or something. You know what I mean? These were like 3 very, very different performers. And I love watching performances in general. So for me, this is a blessing that I get to do this, especially with like-minded people. So yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate it. And Animated J, you've been hosting on and off since round 1. So at the close of GFC, any closing thoughts?
Man, I mean, I have many thoughts, but we don't have time for all the thoughts.
We got time for your thoughts, baby.
I appreciate you, Jess. My first thought is I'm glad that we've had your analytical mind, but also creativity, because that definitely played a good role, I would say, in the judging process. So, and of course, Recursion, you've been definitely like always giving feedback and being honest, and these are the qualities we want in judges, having understanding what's going on. And and Krusty, I know this was the first time I saw you judging with us, but loving again your own view and what you feel, what feels, because I hear a lot of your opinion, what you feels to you. So again, thank you for your perspective as well. Thank you, AJ. Welcome back. It's been a bit, but glad everything's great and doing your thing. So yeah, it's been a great whole GFC. And my last word is keep going. I can't wait to see you gloving in 10 years. Okay.
Wait. Before we go, Jay teaches the source code of them all.
Jay, again, thank you so much. JayFunk, Jest, Recursion, Krusty, and everybody who joined us in previous episodes. This was an absolute wonderful event to put on. I am very grateful for everybody who has tuned in, liked, comment, or subscribed. Tune in next week as we have an announcement. Well, maybe next week. We might take a little bit more time off. Honestly, your boy's tired. But we'll have an announcement video soon detailing our next kind of online competitive gloving content. Stay tuned, and thanks again, everybody.